Hello everybody, this is Mr Erwin, Principal at Stimpson Community School. What I'd like to do in the next few minutes is to go through some of the key messages for reopening. But before I do that, I'd like to just think for a moment about the video, and I hope it's actually chimed with many of you how poignant some of the messages were in that particular video. And as we move through in this presentation, I hope that we can actually assure you that we are doing many things to ensure that your child is successful in returning to school. So here are my reopening key messages in readiness for the phased return, which will start on Monday the 8th of March in terms of face-to-face learning and throughout the week, so that we're all back by the end of the first week of the 8th of March. So just a quick reminder of why it's safe to return. Sometimes we forget about these key messages. That the government has decided that schools should reopen first. It's part of a unlocking of the lockdown, and there are 4 principles. I'm not going to read what those are on the screen, but you can see they're based around the successful vaccination, the impact it's had in terms of not only the number of people who've been vaccinated, and I know there's still more to come, but the impact it's had in reducing hospitalisations and infection rates. And finally, for me, on point 4, this idea, and this is government language, not mine, variants of concern, these mutations, as they call them, of the COVID that we've been hearing about, and they believe that schools returning will not actually increase that risk. So that's why it's safe to return. But there's much more to just the safety, but why it's very important, it's about your child's mental health. I think that somewhere in those 4 points should have been the 5th point that the government actually identified as a reason. So working together as we come back to school, we want to make sure students are able to do the following things. Get back into healthy daily routines. It is good for the mind, it's good for the body. And whatever we feel about the daily slog of getting up at a certain time, being in a certain place, having to do certain things, there's no doubt in my mind it is absolutely essential for young people and for adults to get back to those daily routines. To get back to engaging, remote learning has been absolutely brilliant, but it isn't everybody's cup of tea, and I'm sure we could do even better. And thank you for your support and your feedback, but it's no substitute for face-to-face learning. We need to build those partnerships with families, with students again, and this is one of the things that we are going to particularly be wanting to engage with. And finally, for me, I'm going to ban the word catch up. That's all I'm going to say. But for students not to feel that they're behind, I know there is a temptation for that word to be used. It's not anybody's fault, but to rebuild the confidence in learning, developing new skills and knowledge, and checking what may have been missed. That's going to be one of our objectives as we return. And we hope through this, students will understand that although we're moving back to school, lockdown has not yet been removed. So this means that we still have to do certain things in a specific way. And as I go through the presentation, you'll see many of these things are no different to what they were last term. That's in terms of social distancing guidelines, bubbles will remain in place, and certain activities will remain limited, such as sporting or group or cross-bubble activities will not be allowed. And the idea of coming in a particular gate and going out a particular gate is part of that. What we don't want to have is for bubbles or smaller bubbles within bubbles going back into isolation. And we've got to be very, very mindful of the fact that the R rate, particularly in Peterborough, is at a point where we need to make sure we continue to be vigilant and diligent in what we are going to be asked to do. So let's just move to the crux of this presentation. When I said it's a phased return, what I mean by that is that we aim to have all year groups in by Friday the 12th of March. But to do that, we will be asked to test students, and to minimise the disruption to learning, we will start that on Friday the 5th of March for post-16 in year 11, only in at an appointed time, for which more details will come out via an email to you and to your child or children. about the timings of when to come in. They do not need to come in uniform, but they will need to actually wear a face mask at an allocated time if you have given consent. Clearly, if you do not give consent, your child will be in at the allocated time that's going to appear on the screen in a minute. So on this screen, you can see on Friday the 5th of March that Year 11 and Post 16 are in for testing, but there will be no lessons other than those that are conducted through remote learning. And that will be non-live lessons so that nobody feels that they are missing out. And then you can see through the actual table, then on Monday, Year 10 will come in for testing only, Year 11 and Post 16 will be in for lessons, and then you can see 9s will be in on Tuesday for testing only, but Year 10s, 11s and Post 16s will be in for learning and normal routines, and it goes throughout the week. I think that's self-explanatory. So lateral flow testing processes explained. This is for those parents or carers who have given consent. We are required to conduct 3 tests within a 3 to 5 calendar day, that's not a school day, over a period of 2 to 3 weeks. I do urge as many parents, and it's fantastic. Just before I started this presentation, I could see there was 500 parents that have given consent. But if you feel that you do not wish to give consent, that is equally okay. It will not stop your child from coming in at those allocated times, which were shared on the previous slide. On the particular diagram that I'm going to explain, it will mean that we will have to pull out students during the course of the day. And where you see Year 10-2 or Year 8-3, Y83, it means that will be the second or third wave of testing, and hopefully by then they're very conversant with it, and I have previously sent out what that process entails. Following that, there will be home testing kits delivered to school or to your homes for you to continue this particular process at home, and that once the information has come out, we will share that with you. If I can move on now to the school day and routines reminders, and I think this is quite poignant and relevant here. Very little has changed since the autumn term, and where it is, I will highlight it. But what it's really important is much needs to be repeated and vigilance applied, because we're not out of the woods yet. So a quick reminder that students will be allocated to the gates as they were back in the autumn term. It seems such a long time ago, but they have been doing that for a term and they will remain the same. They will leave via those particular gates, and as we go on to the next slide, you will see the school day is no different. The only thing to say is that attendance is now compulsory, except for those on the critically extremely vulnerable student list. We have that. We've had the letters from your doctor, but if you are a child or a sibling of somebody that is on the CEV list, you're expected to actually attend school. And there will be slightly staggered exit at the end of the day by about 5 minutes to manage the flow, as what we did last half term. So 7, 8 and 9 at 3:15, and then 10, 11 Post 16 at 3:20. Just a quick but important reminder about expectations and standards in terms of uniform. Superb, really high standards. So proud of students for embracing the uniform. And here is the reminder, there is no difference. So if you have any shortages of a uniform, please go online now, whether it be with the online providers, wherever you choose to go, whatever your preference, they are delivering, and they are delivering within the next day. But if you have any particular issues, please contact the school this week and let us know of any difficulties so we can support you in any way that we can possibly do so. But it's the same uniform standards as before, and you can find these details on our website. So, slight change in the use of face masks. Just a quick reminder that face masks should be worn to and from school. This is your choice. Clearly, there are some legal requirements to wear them in shops, in the library, public transport, shared transport, particularly if you are actually sharing transport with somebody within your bubble or a taxi. But here's the change, and the government guidance is that face masks should now be used and worn in every lesson alongside the communal movements in and out of the school or around the building. So just repeat that, face masks should be worn in every lesson and journeying from and to the next lesson, indoor and out. Face masks need to be plain and have no logos on them. You did exceptionally well last term, so I don't see if there has been any difference. And unfortunately, if face masks are unacceptable, we will ask, and we will be in our rights to ask you to remove them, and we will provide you with a disposable face mask. It's important that we will review the use of face masks. We are told by the government this may well be reviewed again shortly after the Easter holidays, and certainly for the next 3 weeks as we return, week beginning Monday the 8th of March, it's important we follow this particular guidance. So what is acceptable? Well, there we go. What is not acceptable, and this is not exhaustive, so please be aware of that. We're not going to accept those on there. So just more detailed guidance on the face masks, much I've actually repeated, so I'm not going to go through that again. Just in lessons, face masks will be recommended as per government guidance and reviewed after the Easter holidays. That's the key message with there. And the second key message about this is the safe disposable of disposable face masks, because they need to be disposed safely into bins. We have a health and safety particular regulation to dispose of them, so please make sure you don't drop them, or deliberately drop them I should say, or actually just leave them about. It's not fair for people to pick those up, and it's not hygienic. You will be asked to actually wear face masks in the canteen, toilets and changing rooms. Face masks at social times can be removed as long as you're outdoor, as this presents a problem. Now, if there is problems with face masks, we do have a supply. Your teachers will have a supply in their classrooms on there, and it's important if you're a parent, if you've got a disposable face mask, or even one of the more durable, that you do have more than one to cover you across the day. The guidance will be provided about how to put on safely and how to dispose of face masks through the government website, and that will be on our particular website alongside this presentation. Clearly, if you have a medical reason, please let us know. If you've previously done that, we'll accept that, but please let us know if you are exempt, and we will make sure it's very clear to everybody that you are exempt from wearing a face mask for whatever medical or other reason. Okay, just quickly, last couple of slides you may be pleased to know. I'm trying to go through this quickly, but not too quickly. I hope that you appreciate that this information is relevant and necessary to go through so that you can actually be brought up to speed. Just a quick one for year 11 and post 16, and going back to that opening video, I guess many of that was pointed towards that particular age group, but not entirely. And just a nod here that just the timeline, 14th week beginning the 14th of June is the deadline for the teachers to submit their teacher assessment grades. These are now the 2 important dates for results days. They've come forward, not as far forward as originally planned, but still well before the end of August. Please put those in your diary. Mr Erwin will lead on this process, and there'll be a team of quality assurers to be set up, including an external layperson to validate the process, for which we believe will actually strengthen your confidence in how we reach those particular teacher assessment grades. There will indeed be an appeals process, more details to follow, and a little bit out of order there, we will be considering our evidence base over the last 2 years, mini assessments, classwork, etc. And as I've said earlier, there is only 10 weeks and there's everything to play for. So please do not feel there's nothing to be gained by coming to school. Quite the opposite. The video at the beginning really did make it very clear there's all to play for. And it's not just about those examination results. If you're in a child in year 7, it's about that continuity of learning, getting back to normal routines, etc., etc. And just the final thing for me, we will be mindful about not overloading those students in end of year exams or a process of ending their formal phase of education. That's year 11, possibly some in year 12, and in post 16, year 13, that we won't be there assessing you to death over the next couple of weeks. It will be monitored and regulated. We don't want to be overly stressed, but equally we want to take the opportunities where we can. So a final couple of slides from me is just student responsibilities when leaving the school site. Our members of the public are very appreciative of the way that you conduct yourselves, that's the students, in terms of walking at the front pathways between ourselves and William Law and down to Fox Covered and down into the centre. Please do not ride your bikes, be considerate of others. It gets very, very busy in the mornings, so that is a reminder of what you did superbly well during last term. You need to make sure you travel to and from school with your uniform. It sets a good reputation, or indeed a bad one if you're not in uniform. Anybody involved in incidents outside school will be dealt by myself, and if necessary, if it's a police matter, they will be supporting us with this. Just because it's outside of school and out of hours does not mean that we cannot apply the school sanctions as per the Department for Education guidance. Key one here is over the next 3 weeks, we have been particularly been asked by Peterborough City Council and the government for young people to not congregate in parks and outside the school. We will be working with our external agencies to ensure that you come to school in an orderly way and you disperse in an orderly way and you go straight home. It's not the time to be congregating in mass groups, and it will not be actually tolerated. So please make sure you make it your business to leave the school site and get home in the most efficient way possible. And for those who are cyclists, particularly on the road, please, some of you think you're superhuman, and it's very, very mindful. Cars can't see you. You can't see them sometimes, and that's a recipe for disaster. So please make sure you have a helmet, make sure you have front and rear lights on your bike. Walk, not cycle on the paths. Don't weave in and out of car parks, okay, and where cars are very congested, because they may not be able to see you, as I said before. And most of all, do not ride through the Tesco car park, because there is a recipe for disaster there and we don't want anybody hurt. And finally, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all the parents and carers for your support during the lockdown, both before, last term and during. Thank you for your feedback. There is going to be a frequently asked questions form for you to fill in. So if you've got any questions based on this presentation, then you will be able to raise that and we'll get back to you and answer that very, very quickly. There may well be difficulties that may present themselves. For some people, it will be just like they've never, ever been away. A bit like riding a bike after a number of weeks and months. You just get on it and you go. For others, there may be more difficulties, and we pledge to support and work with you, because partnership is key in how we move forward. And we're not quite certain how things will go for some, but we do know, we promise to work on that trust, that building a thirst of learning, and more importantly, to engage so that your child feels back to normal and back to the school routines, which are really, really healthy. Parents' evenings and face-to-face meetings unfortunately will continue, or fortunately, because a lot of positivity about the virtual parents' evening, but unfortunately, unless it's absolutely critical, face-to-face meetings in school will not be encouraged unless it's an emergency, and will be conducted virtually for the foreseeable future. Final thing for me to say, I think we hope this is going to be the last reopening briefing that I have to conduct regarding lockdown and coming out of it. I think we can now see a sense of optimism, and hopefully with the success of the vaccinations, the return to school, we can now enjoy more stable times. And we will work very, very hard to try and actually ensure that we get back to a normality that was once actually enjoyed and taken possibly for granted. So I want to wish you all the very, very best. I hope in this very short presentation I haven't gone too quickly, but if I have, there is the opportunity to rewind, pause, one of the benefits of virtual presentations rather than a live one. Take care. Thank you for watching and listening, and please do push through any questions you have, because it matters to us that we answer them so that the start back and the ongoing weeks are successful. Bye-bye.